Now, let me tell you about the latest in terms of on the ground there in Gaza, because the UN Regional Relief Agency, UNRWA, says that hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have displaced in the last 12 hours, nearly a million, almost half the territory's population in the last week. Let me tell you more from that statement, because there is more detail coming in. They're talking about the Israeli order as well to leave that northern part of the territory. The full statement there that's available online. Let me take you through it because there are significant new detail. They've called on the Israeli authorities to protect all civilians who've been sheltering in UN UNRWA premises across the Gaza Strip, including those in northern Gaza and Gaza City. Despite the order, they say, for more than 1 million people to actually move, they say that many people, pregnant women, children, older people, people with disabilities, will not be able to flee the area. They have no choice, they say, and they must be protected at all times. Wars have rules, this statement says. Civilians, hospitals, schools, clinics and UN premises cannot be targeted. We're sparing no effort to advocate with parties to the conflicts to meet their obligations under international law to protect civilians, including those seeking refuge in UNRWA shelters. And it goes on finally to say at the end of this statement, this is unprecedented, what we're seeing. This war should be no exception. Protection of civilians and civilian infrastructure, including UN buildings, applies to this conflict too. So a long statement there from UNRWA about their assessment on the ground in terms of the people displaced, but very clearly articulating that many people won't be able to move, won't be able to follow that Israeli instruction, and absolutely underlying the point that they say that UN premises cannot be targeted if those people do not move and follow that deadline order from the Israelis. Well, let's reflect more about what is happening on the ground, because Mahmoud Shalabi is in Gaza, is the Gaza Director for Medical Aid for Palestinians. He spoke to us about what life is actually there on the ground at the moment.
Life is really miserable and dire. The situation is really tense where I live. I live in the north of Gaza, and one of the governorates that the Israelis have asked the peoples to flee from yesterday. I am one of the people who did not flee their home, and I refuse to do so because there is no place that is safe in Gaza. Even in the southern parts of Gaza, where many of my colleagues have went and where many of internally displaced people are located right now, it's really unsafe. Just yesterday at around 4 p.m., one truck full of internally displaced people was directly targeted by the Israelis, and 71 people were killed in that direct hit of internally displaced people. So there is no place that is currently safe right now. I am talking to you because I have a generator that we bought years ago, and I managed to have some fuel, leftover fuel from like the fuel station where I live. So I am one of the few ones who can actually connect to the outside world and tell you about the situation right now in Gaza. We do believe that it is unsafe to move right now to any place in the southern parts of Gaza. As I told you, there have been many airstrikes since yesterday and early this morning. One of the areas, of the safe areas in the south of Gaza Strip, is Khan Younis. A colleague of mine lives there. He has hosted 6 families of internally displaced people. This morning at 7 a.m., an airstrike happened next to his home, and they are trying to extract dead bodies from under the rubble. So as I told you, there is no place that is safe right now. Yesterday, we were also given as Palestinians a safe passage from like the early sunlight until like around like 6 p.m. or something. And that happened during that time. In addition, if you also see what's happening during the night in those areas in the southern parts of Gaza, there have been many airstrikes and many houses destroyed over the top of their residents. There have been no warnings, such as like in previous escalations, where they would throw a drone missile on top of a building to warn the citizens that they have to flee their homes. Nothing. Yes, yesterday, one of my colleagues at Medical Aid for Palestinians, his name is Muhammad, his house was destroyed while he was in there with his 6 children and wife. They managed to escape miraculously, but they lost some of the extended family members. He lost his cousin, and the situation has been really dire. He stayed in a shop, like the neighbors opened the shop for them to stay there during the night. And at the early sunlight, he went to Shifa, the largest hospital in Gaza Strip. He described the situation for me. The hospital itself is full of internally displaced people because they don't find any other place that is safe to go to.
Well, just a snapshot of the latest on the ground there in Gaza.